Okay, before we were so unceremoniously bumped due to technical difficulties, which our kids would never have
Yes.
had, let's talk about let's talk about your plan to refinance student debt, which is an
Yes,
important uh, issue.
absolutely.
Who are the winners and losers in that? Obviously, the consumers, but where does the debt go? I mean, who carries that burden?
Yeah, so there are approximately, Chris, 9 other states that already have implemented a similar program, a student loan refinancing authority. Virginia actually did this up until about 20 years ago. So in 1997 was when the program that we had in Virginia stopped functioning. But I think, frankly, there are mostly winners in this. And so the way you can structure it a couple of different ways, but the way that other states have done it is they will either use, tax exempt or tax advantaged bonds, sell those on the market and, at auction or some other way, which would then provide the capital and the financing from the, free market to finance the refinance of the debt. I mean, it's very similar to what you see with mortgage loan refinancing and auto loan refinancing. It just takes this specific category of debt and makes it possible for more people to take advantage of the historically low interest rates that we have. I think I may have mentioned this as well, but when my wife and I graduated from our respective graduate schools, we each had 6 figures of student loan debt apiece.
Oof.
Yeah, so serious money. But again, here's the great part of the story, and this is where the economic opportunity piece comes in. We were able to, within a year of graduating from graduate school, purchase both a family small business, which is a dental practice, the largest investment that we still to this day have ever made. We bought it 10 years ago, and also a home in the same year. So you can imagine, right? Those two really big expenditures, and the reason we could do it with 6 figures of student loan debt is because of the accident of history, which is that interest rates were at historic lows when we were graduating. So you're around about 2 or 3%. So we could manage the debt and get access to capital at the same time, and that's changed what's possible, for us and our family. We've now owned that home for almost 10 years now. We've owned that dental practice for 10 years. And that has created so much opportunity for us. We want that for every family and every young person, so they're not stuck with this, 8% student loan debt, on average about $30,000. It's hampering so much of what's possible for them economically. They're delaying by 5, 7, and 10 years buying a home, even starting a family. Or accessing capital to start and grow a small business, and that really is the secret sauce of America. Is that you get a high quality education,
Right.
you go out and get some skills and training, and then you can move up economically, and that's what we want to make possible for more people.
Well, that's a very interesting idea. I don't want to call it a great idea just yet because I'm still trying to wrap my head around
We'll get
the
there. We'll get there.
you can't, well, I think one of the elements is if the state's carrying the debt or has obligations to that debt, there might be an impact to the AAA bond rating, which you might want to explore with
Yeah.
some of the members on the Senate Finance and Appropriations, just to flesh out that
Oh,
that
well, no,
boogeyman issue.
without question, Chris. And again, depending upon the model, I mean, the state may or may not actually have to carry the debt. I mean, particularly if you're
Okay.
auction, it may have some startup costs in terms of creating the facility, the credit
Right.
facility through which these loans will be refinanced. But studies that have been done, and actually Delegate Marcus Simon, who's a great friend of mine, is actually my delegate and a great leader on this, and Janet Howe, Senator. They both have proposed legislation to do just this, to create this student
Oh,
loan
okay.
refinancing authority in the General Assembly. And what Marcus has found in particular is that these programs typically actually make money for the state. Now that's not their intended purpose, and we're
Right.
not talking about a huge amount of money, but because of the model, it actually is a benefit to the state while being a massive benefit to young people and their families. Before we got cut off, I was mentioning another study that's been done. The realtors are very much behind this
Oh.
idea in this bill, in large part because for every $250 that you can reduce a monthly student loan debt payment, it translates into $40,000 in additional purchasing power for a home.
Wow.
And so just imagine that if you can take a kid, and reduce by, let's say, $500 what they're paying per month, that's another $80,000 they could use to purchase a home. Not to say
Wow.
they have to max out and purchase the bigger home, but they could purchase a home much sooner in that case. And so this has, tremendous positive ripple effects in the economy far beyond just the student
Oh,
who is
yeah.
taking on the debt.
No, I mean, it has a lot of potential there, and it's definitely an issue worth exploring. I just,
Yeah,
as putting my hat on as a former legislator to say
yeah,
the AAA bond rating, there was just been some
absolutely.
stories out, and that's just one of the the buttons I think you got to, or bows you
It's
got to tie on
essential,
that one. Absolutely.
without question, and that's essential. We got to protect our AAA bond rating, no doubt.
No, because there's a great economic opportunity there, especially for people who want a first-time home buy and then put
Yep,
improvements into that home to create more market value for that home, which they eventually sell because first-time home buyers typically will move on from there.
that's exactly right.
Let's
And we want a
talk.
robust mortgage market in this state.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
Yep,
do. Let's talk about transportation. You've been
please.
traveling around the state. Give us your thoughts on what we need to do to improve our transportation, and more importantly, or as importantly, how to fund it.
Absolutely. And Chris, this is actually something that is near and dear to really all of our hearts, but mine in particular. I've traveled now about 30,000 miles in the car in the last 11 months around the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so I have been in every kind of traffic that you can imagine, whether it was on 66, 395, 64, 81, 29, 460. We've kind of been all around the Commonwealth. And we have some genuine transportation challenges, and I would put them in a few different categories. Obviously, our roads and bridges. We are starting to invest in those in 2013, as you are well aware, was the first time HB 2313 that we had invested significantly in our infrastructure in that way in nearly 27 years. And so we made billions of dollars available, and those funds are now being spent on significant and important projects. But we have got to keep our eye on the ball. I like to use. I'm a public policy major from that school that I won't name because that you all beat us in basketball this year. But I look at things through a policy prism, and in particular, I look at things through a future is now prism. We have got to make investments today that are going to provide us with the necessary infrastructure that's key to economic growth and development in the future. And I'll give you some specific examples. One is Metro. And you're very familiar with the metro system. It is under the jurisdiction of four different jurisdictions. You're talking about the federal government, Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. And that has been for its life. It's been around for 41 years. A great system, except for recently. And I used to actually take Metro a lot, and I have not taken it in a very long time because of the safety issues and the unreliability of the schedule. And I think that is a perfect example, Chris, of where we should have taken a future is now approach. We kicked the can down the road basically for 40 years. We had deferred maintenance pile up. We had underinvestment. We had squabbling, between the jurisdictions until, the system got into crisis. And essentially they've had to start from scratch with the Safe Surge program. I saw a report maybe some months ago that ridership was down 11%. They had lost $1 billion in revenue as a result, and even in inflation-adjusted dollars, it's costing us significantly more to now repair the damage that we could have, dealt with along the way. If we had, felt a little bit more pain in the last 40 years, we wouldn't be feeling this massive pain today with the system collapsing. So we have got to start to think out not just election to election and not just a year to year, but in the long-term interest of the Commonwealth of Virginia and of our region, because we need a strong regional economy to continue the great growth that we have seen here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where we have record unemployment 3.8%. We're the lowest in the Southeast, and that's something to be proud of. But also, we have seen job growth in many of the sectors that are so important to our economy. We have about 161,000 people now who are unemployed and looking for work. We've got to make sure that those folks can find work. And that they can find work, get a livable wage, get into some of these higher paying middle skill jobs to get the technical training that allows them to have that economic mobility. And we can do that. We are in a strong position, but we can be in an even better position. And that's what we really focused on in this campaign.
Okay, let's jump over to healthcare. Where are you on
Absolutely.
Medicaid expansion, and how would you approach that as Lieutenant Governor?
Yes. Well, Chris, I am 100% in favor of Medicaid expansion. I believe we should have done it years ago. We now find ourselves in Virginia in the minority on this. There are 31 states in the District of Columbia who have all expanded Medicaid. And this has been, frankly, on a bipartisan basis. You have seen states that are red and states that are blue who have expanded Medicaid. Virginia, as we know, has lost out on $10.4 billion in potential Medicaid revenue. We're losing, by some estimates, $6.6 million per day. by having foregone Medicaid expansion, which of course makes people eligible for Medicaid benefits when they're up to about 138% of the federal poverty line. So we could cover about 400,000 more Virginians, which I think is the humane thing to do and the smart thing to do. But we also could benefit our economy. There are estimates that we could create 30,000 new jobs, primarily in the healthcare space. And the federal government, as we know by the program, for the first 3 years was going to pick up 100% of the tab. And after that was going to phase out and pick up 90% of the tab. So there was an MIT study done by an economist who said that there's really no hidden downside. And the states who have expanded Medicaid have seen dramatic reductions in the rate of uninsured, down to about 16%. The states that have actually expanded, it's still over 40% in states that have not expanded. And they've also seen this economic benefit in terms of the Medicaid dollars. These are dollars that our Virginia taxpayers.
Yep. Done.